Alrighty, I would like to welcome everybody to the luckiest select board meeting of the year, Monday, March 17th, 2025. And we will do a call to order, starting with
Alexandra Samaco, present.
Joyce Capiello here.
Nanchuk, present.
Mordekov here.
Sakosha here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have two oaths of office, and they are for Alexandra and Joyce. So could I have you both up here, please? Here's your oath. Could you please read
Can
that?
we read it together?
You sure can.
Okay. I,
Alexandra Samaco,
and I, Joyce Capiello,
do solemnly swear that I will bear faith and true allegiance to the United States of America and the state of New Hampshire, and will support the constitutions thereof, so help me God. I, Alexandra Samaco,
and I, Joyce Capiello,
do solemnly and sincerely swear and affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as Select Board member of Barrington, New Hampshire for 3 years, according to the best of my abilities, agreeably to the rules and regulations of this Constitution and the laws of the state of New Hampshire, so help me God.
You want to say a couple?
Yeah. Wanted to thank the residents of Barrington for putting your faith in me and re-electing me to another 3 years on the select board. And I wanted to thank all the people who stopped to talk to me when I was at the transfer station or at the polls, and you shared your thoughts about Barrington. Those were really interesting and thoughtful conversations. So I would encourage you to stay in touch. My email is on the town website. It's also jcapiello@barrington.newhampshire. So let's continue the conversation.
Good evening. My name is Alexandra Samaco, and I am honored to start my first term as a member of the Select Board, and I look forward to doing so faithfully with integrity and with openness. So, my email is also on the town website, and I look forward to hearing from everybody and hopefully finding new and interesting ways to have dialogue between the board and residents of Barrington. So, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Okay, so select board reorganization, according to section 1B, the select board rules and procedures. It is first off that we should reestablish to pick chair and vice chair. To make it a little bit easier, I'm interested in rerunning for chair. But we are at that junction to, if you guys have any suggestions or if anybody else would like to run for chair, that's our discussion.
So I have a firm belief in shaking things up every single year that we do this. So I would like to see us rotate. I think the intention, at least when we last did appointments, was that Rob would actually be position. I'm somewhat that and miss his very well weighted voice. So I would be comfortable taking on the role if that is something the board in that I would down from chairperson's CBA.
would support that. I kind of like mixing too. Jim, if you want to.
Any other?
All of us have been chair except Alexandra, so.
Should we throw her to the wolves
Yeah.
immediately, or
I
should
think
we?
that's
I
not.
I don't think that's quite fair.
Yeah.
I would go along with, I would think an idea would be to have Tracy step in just because
Fair enough.
that'll give you a Thursday off.
Maybe.
Yeah, so it's entirely up to all of you. I would recuse myself from a vote.
Alexandra?
So are we voting, do we vote separately for chair and then separately for vice?
Yes.
Not a ticket.
Right, and do we need a motion?
Yep. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we do a roll call vote on Tracy Hardikoff as nominee for chair of the select.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Samako, aye.
Capiello, aye.
Mantrick, aye.
Hardikoff recuse?
Sakosha here. Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
or do you want to say?
I was going to make a motion that we elect to our board for vice chair position, Mr. Jim Sakosha.
I was going to make that motion, so I'll second it.
Okay, and a roll call vote, please.
Samako, aye.
Capiello, aye.
Mantrick, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Sakosha.
That's right.
So we have it.
You guys gonna stay in your seats, or you gonna move?
Yeah. You good?
I'm good.
Okay,
I'm good.
great.
I'm good. We are on agenda item 4 for agenda review and approval. With agenda review and approval, we reviewed the consent agenda, add to it any additional items such as Whitner's Way and the adoption of that road, which could become consent agenda item.
We'll add it to the new business where we'll discuss the open space.
Oh, okay.
And the proposal is to name that subdivision road Whitner's Court. And so we'll discuss that under new business, but we'll add that to the agenda.
Very good.
So the proposal.
So you have before you a consent agenda A through F. Any changes to that?
I'll make a motion to approve the March 17th agenda as amended.
I'll second.
And roll call vote, please.
Samako, aye.
Capiello, aye.
Aye.
Hardikoff?
Sakosha.
Yep, Hardikoff aye as well. Before us are, I'm sorry, we've missed public comment. Let's move back up to public comment.
Right.
Oh, I'm on track? Thank you,
You're good.
sir. Okay.
Right.
Public comment. Public comment is limited to a full span of 15 minutes, 3 minutes per person. Do we see anyone online that would like to speak? If you'd like to speak and you're online, mouse over the front of your screen and click on the hand that says raise. It'll let us know that you'd like to speak. Anyone in-house who'd like to speak at this time? Please go right ahead. Name and address if you would, sir.
My name is Jack Gale, 798 Berry River Road, and a member of the trustee of the trust funds for the town of Barrington. Later on tonight, you'll be considering an appointment for voting at a later meeting. This is all because of Patricia Gingrich is going to be resigning her post after 11 years on this committee. She served the town just as you know, as the small army of volunteers that works with the dedicated core of higher employees that help make Barrington what it is. The present board and everyone who has served, she brought us together. Almost every one of us traces our lineage back to Pat asking, could you help out the town? On the flip side of that, the application does reflect that Kim Bennis did attend our meeting. She was explaining stuff to people there on how it worked, having seen it for the first time. She's got the background and the commitment to the community. The present members of the trustee of the trust fund. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Sally Varney. We're here to add our voice to more than just an application and hope that you will give consideration and a yes vote at the next meeting for Kim Bennis. And thirdly, thank God we have this system of outlining capital needs into the future. that the town does with all the different groups and the departments you work with, and that we save money for a rainy day. We've got about 6.2 between the town and the school tucked away for things that we need. But we saw this weekend that the town of Loudon, they basically voted down, they needed to float a bond for $1.7 million for a fire truck they need because their current one is falling apart and the maintenance costs is killing them. And they had to say no. The fact that we're saving for the fire trucks and the unanticipated high school tuition and the other things that we think we may need, and the fact that you're making every department look ahead because nobody wants a bill that large dropped on their community. So thank you for giving us a chance to not have that kind of economic bombshell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? At this time, I will then close public comment and open up to public hearings and invited guests. School board liaison report, perhaps? Oh, yeah. Welcome.
Oh, do you not even have a red light? On the bottom, there's a power button, kind of flush with the, press that.
Hey, look,
It's
green.
There we have it.
All right, technology wins.
Yeah, thanks for having us. As you know, we had the election last week. Our two incumbents ran unopposed. So we'll get back to work. One of the things that we'll have an organizational meeting tomorrow night, much like you folks did, to determine who our chair and vice chair will be. I have no idea what'll happen, whether it'll stay the same or they'll swap seats. I can tell you who's not interested in being chair. But anyway, we're in the middle of, we got the two high schools, Dover and Oyster River, are schools of record. We did, I believe, an 8-year contract with Dover and a 9-year contract with Oyster River. We were supposed to get something together a year ago, and there was a screw up, and so they went both together, and we've decided that moving forward, it makes more sense to offset those so that the taxpayers aren't sitting there looking at, do you want to send your kids to Dover? Do you want to send them to Oyster River? So that's in place now, that they'll be offset a year when that comes up in 8 or 9 years. Co-Brown, we don't have, we have a memorandum of understanding with Co-Brown, not a contract with them. We approved a 2-year MOU. We're just waiting for Co-Brown to sign that, send that back to Deanna. And tomorrow night, we will look at, it's time for a school bus contract. So we put an RFP out for a 5-year transportation contract for regular transportation and specialized transportation. So I anticipate that the board will make a decision tomorrow night in which direction we're going to go. God bless the Carrie and Garth and Deanna. They work on they're on the policy committee, and they're constantly reviewing policies. There's so many of them. We follow a lot of what the New Hampshire School Board Association uses, make some minor modifications for what may or may not affect Barrington, but there's so many of them that it's a constant situation in which they are just always doing it, because by the time you get to the last one, it's time. It's been a few years to look at the first ones. Kind of a little bit of a fly in the ointment, if you will, is I'm sure all of you are paying attention to what's going on in Washington, D.C., and that has trickled up to the locals and the fact that there's policies that are in place that are now having to be reviewed because the federal government's telling us that they're no. See, I talked too long, I killed the microphone. But
Microphone got tired.
But so there, some of these we're being forced to come back and look at, and some of them, there's laws associated with them, so we're having to go back and forth with the attorneys to see if we can follow that. So interesting part on us that get to stand back and vote on what they are working on. But so that's what we're looking at. Obviously, we're concerned about the amount of federal money that may or may not be coming our way. I think we're all gonna be faced with that. We may get away with it this year, but I think by next year, both the town and the school are gonna, or, some of the funds we were depending on aren't gonna be there. The state of New Hampshire's already said that some of the things, the lawsuits and stuff that are going on are gonna have an impact on what the state has for money. And so that's gonna trickle downhill and gonna affect all of us. So I think you're gonna see the next year is gonna be pretty interesting for all of us.
How did you make out at the pancake benefit? Did you guys?
I don't pay attention to that stuff. So I don't know that the treasurer has sat down and looked at it, but if I base it on the number of people that were there, it started getting busy, like literally 10 minutes after we opened the doors, and it stayed busy all the way till about 20 past 10, and then it kind of leveled off for the last 45 minutes. So.
Awesome.
Good support of firefighters.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we would entertain a motion in reference to the consent agenda.
Move that we vote on the consent agenda as stated.
Okay, and do I have a second? Very good, thank you. Roll call.
Samaco, aye.
Gabriello, aye.
Mantrick, aye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Sakosha.
Thank you. On the appointments front, are we just discussing this?
Yes.
Okay, so any questions, comments, or concerns in reference to the application for the trustee of the trust fund?
I think Jack's,
Endorsement?
yeah, was great.
She has been attending,
Mhm. Excellent.
contributing to that.
And no
Thank you
vote
for
on
that.
that until next round,
That's right. So for trustee of the trust funds and supervisors of the checklists, the appointments for vacant positions are through the remainder of the unexpired term. For, supervisors of the checklist, that could be 6 years. In this case, Pat Gingrich's term expires in 2026. So this will just be an appointment for the next year. And if she's interested in continuing, she'll have to put her name on the ballot to be voted on by the voters in 2026.
Okay, so the review is this meeting, and next meeting we will vote on that.
That's right.
Application. Very good. Thank you. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you. We are at our second meeting in March, so I won't read through the work anniversaries again, but certainly appreciate those employees. Moving quickly into town meeting ballot session results. So we had our vote last Tuesday. We had just about 30%, 29.75% voter turnout, which I feel like is a positive outcome from what I've seen in other communities across the state. It's challenging when you don't have something really controversial on the ballot, or something that the majority of residents find controversial or interesting. And so we did our best to attract voters from every corner of Barrington. I feel glad that we reached 30% of them. It's always great the more residents that we can get. And so we'll continue to spend time trying to figure out where to reach residents and encourage them to get involved, even if it's just once a year to vote. I included in your printed packet the election results. So we talked about the voter turnout. One of the things that is worth paying attention to is trends in voter support and understanding exploring and trying to understand what might impact those trends. And so I updated an analysis that I've done for the last couple of years and included a copy in your packet and linked to my town administrator report. Excuse me. And the focus of this analysis is exploring the different levels of funding for separate warrant articles and how that has or has not impacted voter support. And so there are three main ways we've done this over the last, say, 10 years. One way, which we did for quite a while, was take unassigned fund balance and fund separate warrant articles 100% from unassigned fund balance. And one consequence of doing that is because those are tax dollars already collected or already raised, using funds in that way doesn't have any additional tax impact. And so those warrant articles are presented to residents with no tax rate impact. So the second way that we've done it, which is the way we did it again this year, in 2023, or in 2022, excuse me, we presented the separate warrant articles with 100% funding from the tax rate. So when we did it a couple of years ago, the select board had surplus unassigned fund balance to fund those warrant articles and did so at tax rate setting. But all the warrant articles were presented with the tax rate impact as if there were no unassigned fund balance dollars to use towards those appropriations. And then the year in between, last year, we funded 50% of the warrant articles from unassigned fund balance and 50% from the tax rate. And so it was a more accurate reflection of what the tax rate impact would be. And when the tax rate was set, it was almost spot on. But there was that shift. Anyways, the conclusion, if we want to just skip to the conclusion, voter support goes down by about 6% if you have all of the warrant articles funded from the tax rate compared to if half of the amount is funded from unassigned fund balance. And it goes down about 11% if you have all of the funding funded from unassigned fund balance compared to all of the funding funded from the tax rate. And that is consistent with when we did it this way in 23 and in 25, the average voter support across all repeating warrant articles is the same. And so that's certainly one component of what affects voter support for the articles, but certainly there's some consistency there. So in those years where the warrant articles were funded exclusively from unassigned fund balance, the average voter support was 77% for the average of all the articles. When it was funded by the tax rate in both 23 and 25, average voter support was 61%, and it was a 50-50 split in 2024, 66%. And so that is a trend that the select board and the advisory budget committee can use to consider how we're presenting the warrant articles in the future. I will point out one thing that we've been doing different in recent years is we're contributing less to unassigned fund balance because we're budgeting closer to our actual expenditures and we're budgeting revenue closer to our actual revenues. So that's how that should be the goal. The goal should be to get it right. And so contributing less to unassigned fund balance means there's less unassigned fund balance to use either as a funding source or to buy down the tax rate for that portion that's a surplus.
I have a question.
Please.
So this year, the unassigned fund balance was very small, but part of that was due to the bond.
That's right.
So how much? Can you give me a...
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So the fund balance policy set by the select board is to maintain an unassigned fund balance equal to 12.5% of the regular general fund operating expenditures. And that 12.5% is the midpoint of the range recommended not only by the Government Finance Officers Association, but also the Department of Revenue Administration. That range is 8 to 17%. We target 12.5%. The regular general fund operating expenditures is the total of all appropriations from the prior year. So that's appropriations from the school, the town, and what we send to the county, the money that we send to the county. And so when you have a year where a bond is approved, even though you're not raising and spending all of that money in 1 year, that becomes part of the regular general fund operating expenditures for that year. And so it artificially inflates that amount, which makes the 12.5% number a little bit higher as well. The other thing last year was the $1.5 million community center project. Now, $1 million of that is a grant, but again, that counts towards the regular general fund operating expenditures. And so I've done projections based on what was approved this year. And from what it looks like to me, the regular general fund operating expenditures will probably be about the same this year as they were last year. They didn't go up even though the school budget and the town budget went up. They didn't go up because they were artificially inflated last year. And so everything that we contribute to unassigned fund balance at the end of 2024, which my estimate is it'll be about $400,000 or $500,000 between unexpended appropriations and revenue in excess of projections. So all of that will become surplus unassigned fund balance, which as we develop the budget proposal for 2026, the select board will have the ability to consider, with more flexibility than we did this year, the ability to consider what the best way to use that is. Either present them all in the tax rate or take the funding that we have, divide it evenly among all the articles like we did in 24. It's a good question, though.
But me as a taxpayer, it's the same amount, whether it comes on an unassigned fund balance or fully fund a warrant article. It's really the optics of it, because the cost to the resident is going to be the same.
And that's why we've changed. That's why we've done it different and tried to evolve. And I think it's okay to change, but I think it is good also to have some consistency in the presentation. And so just consideration, certainly no action required tonight. Any other questions on that?
Just a comment that when we did 100% against tax, it actually told all the residents exactly what they were paying for. This doing it halfway suggests what they're actually going to pay out of pocket. So there are advantages. There's information, there's transparency in two different directions. They're in some conflict.
It's an excellent point. And the budget committee spent hours, as Dan knows, as a member of the budget committee, over the years considering what the best level of transparency is for the voters. And so that's where that table of collective tax rate impacts came from, those deliberations and trying to figure out how to aggregate the information and get it out there. I also included in your printed packet a table. And so this table shows from 2019 to 2025, each of the warrant articles for that year, the amount, the percentage of voter support, whether they passed or not. And then at the bottom is the totals of separate warrant articles and the total for the operating budget and the separate warrant articles. And so that's an interesting data set to follow and see what the trends have been. Obviously, I used this data to summarize in the analysis, but this is the table of the data in case you're interested in seeing.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
This is pretty awesome to see.
Great. Barrington Kids Vote, round 3, also on Tuesday. I wanted to lead with that because that's obviously the more exciting part, right? We have 4 new I voted stickers that the children selected that we will print for the 2026 school and town meeting. We have a road name. Remember, the select board generously delegated the authority to name the road leading to Barrington Common Welcome Way. What a terrific road name.
Great name.
Dog tag color will be red, and Summer Carnival, we will have a Summer Carnival kids concert this summer. How terrific. So if you didn't see, the union leader spent about an hour, a little over an hour at the polls on Tuesday. It was the cover of the paper the next day. They were excited about that opportunity and to talk to the parents and the kids. So that was really exciting. And so we'll be back again in 2026. Another great success there. Our favorite part of the day by far. I will mention select board committee assignments again. So Madam Chair, congratulations. As your first order of business, you'll have the opportunity to lobby with your colleagues to decide what boards, committees, and commissions. We can spend time now if you want, or we can do it between this meeting and the next, and you can announce at the next meeting if you have a preference.
I think we can do it next meeting, and I think we have most of them already where they need to be.
Awesome.
The one thing I'll ask publicly is, because we have a school board liaison at each of our meetings, do we feel a need to sit through those meetings as well? Or do we feel that we've had a really good transfer of information from what we're receiving.
And I'd like you to weigh in on.
Yeah.
Well, Rick can confer. I do sometimes, I have in the past presented information to the school board, just as Rick presents information to us, going back the other way.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how the school board feels. Occasionally, I think it's useful. It's just the same as when Rick presents or Carrie present here, that sometimes there's not a lot of information and sometimes there's really useful information. So I think we ought to continue to have that. We may not necessarily do it every time.
Okay.
Yeah, I would defer to Rick a bit on that.
Okay.
Whether he likes what I say or not.
Okay. I think, yeah, so I think we have most of it. So I'll follow up with one or two members quietly and we'll come around and assignments.
That sounds great.
Okay.
So I also included in my town administrator report a list of training opportunities upcoming every year. The New Hampshire Municipal Association holds a couple of local officials workshops. There's one that's hybrid that will take place in Concord and available virtually, and another in person only in Jaffrey. There's trainings on the right to know law, hard road travel, all things roads. Looking ahead, I have on your calendar the Budget and Finance Workshop and the New Hampshire Municipal Association Annual Conference, which is in September and November, respectively. And that's all I have.
Oh, that was fast and furious. Municipal Office Administrator call.
4 attempts to cut and 1 report.
Okay. And on to old business, my favorite topic of the evening, the employee total compensation or total rewards review. You want to lead on that?
I will. So earlier this year, the Select Board had a public discussion regarding the opportunity to evaluate the total compensation for employees, not just the wages we provide, but also the benefit package and the value of that benefit package. It's important to make sure that we are not only fair to our employees, but also fair to the community and the taxpayers to make sure that we're balancing the contributions that we make to our employees. And so we've done this a couple of times in the past. Last time we did a full total compensation study was in 2019. In 2022, we did an evaluation of just wages. And the proposal for your consideration is to advertise a request for proposals and for total compensation studies similar to what we did in 2019 to explore the total rewards, wages, and benefits for comparable communities and employers to the town of Barrington. The proposed due date would be April 14th, and the Select Board would make a decision after reviewing those proposals, A, whether to move forward, and B, in which direction.
Have you made any inquiries at all of who might respond to that?
We used the same contractor for both previous compensation studies, and that's MRI. They're a municipal services provider, and they are interested. They're interested. I did a request for information to get an idea of what the cost would be for a total compensation study in today's dollars. They estimated about $18,000, depending on the scope and the level of detail. And so I included that information in the town administrator report, but certainly it would be dependent on the results from the request for proposals. But certainly there are other companies that do it as well. And so we'd be able to explore the options at that point. And so I will point out Select Board members in reviewing their materials had some additional questions or levels of detail regarding historical wage increases. And so I think it's helpful to understand the scope over the last 7 or 8 years. And so part of the budget binder in Chapter 3, which is the wages and benefits, is a historical summary available to the residents, but obviously also the board members, that reviews wage increases over the years starting in 2018. And so over that time period, the average wage increase, so from 2018 to 2024, the average wage increase for employees was 34.77%. And so the cost of living adjustment, or the cost of living as measured by the Consumer Price Index over that same time period was 24.8%. So the net change in value of dollar for employees and change in compensation from 2018 to 2024 is about 10% over those 7 years. So in 2025, the budget that was approved and adopted by the consent agenda, the wage increases, there was a 5% adjustment in total wages. And of that, the cost of living adjustment made up about 3%. And so over those 8 years, the total increase is 39.77%. Corrected for inflation is 12%. And so that's the trajectory that we've been on. We've added about 7 FTEs over those 8 years as well, and that data is summarized in the table in the budget binder document as well. So happy to answer additional questions. The select board had tabled it, the select board had tabled it until after the vote and asked to consider it at this second meeting in March. So that's why we're here.
So in reading through the proposal, the only other thing I think we could add that may be helpful to us is to ask which of the 40 positions we're submitting have contracts, and do we see other municipalities providing contracts for them as well? Because I consider that, I consider that information, I think, is certainly helpful.
If it's a contracted position. One thing that
and the one other thing you may want to consider, and I understand that this does not cost money, but it has to be administered and managed, and that would be, are you offering any other employer administered but employee paid services? Could be something as simple as pet insurance. It could be auto insurance. There's many things that employers sometimes take on. Think Aflac.
Childcare.
Yeah. So I think that's a good question to ask, and it also gives us a springboard to consider other things we may want to administer. Those were the only comments I had.
Make a motion to authorize the advertisement of the request for proposals for a total compensation study as presented.
and amended.
And amended by Trace,
Second.
Chair.
Okay, and a roll call, please.
Samaco, aye.
Capello, aye.
And sure, Kai.
Hardikoff, aye.
Scotia.
Thank you for your hard work on that.
Absolutely.
On to new business that is actually going to result in a vote, hopefully tonight.
Yes.
So it is Whitner's Court being proposed at the new neighborhood off of Oak Hill. Have I got that correct?
Yes, it's still, this is a development which is still in the, an application before the planning board. Here tonight representing the project is Alex Monastiero. Fantastic. If there are any questions that come up. So Joyce, is her role as the ex officio, can certainly let you know what deliberations have gone on at the planning board, but this is still at the application phase. All parties feel like it's probably nearing the end of the application phase. One component of the project is it's a conservation subdivision, and there has been interest both in meetings with staff and with the planning board in the town acquiring the deed to the open space. This is a piece of property that extends just beyond the town center zoning district, but right behind the railroad bed, privately owned railroad bed, and so separated, in between Oak Hill Road and the railroad bed. And so the developers have proposed 2 areas of open space. One which essentially wraps around the conservation subdivision, the actual lots, and then a separate portion which is all undeveloped, plus or minus 25 acres or so, which is that lot that's kind of in the undeveloped area behind the developments on Oak Hill Road and the railroad bed. And so in conversation, they've also made a commitment to maintain access to that open space from Oak Hill Road and or the subdivision road. And so as we look to recreation and civic use opportunities to connect the town center with other parts of town and the trail interconnectivity program we have going on, that will be an opportunity to get to Oak Hill Road from that area and hopefully trails to be developed. We don't have immediate plans. The Downtowns and Trails program with Cooperative Extension is just getting started, and so we'll be able to talk about that as well. So they have submitted also a clean phase 1 environmental analysis to make sure we're not considering accepting deed to a property that has environmental concerns, but that is clean. They haven't proposed any deed restrictions and have asked that the town's attorney draft a deed for their consideration. So the town's attorney is ready and willing to do that. And the proposal would be that there would be no separate parking area. For access to this open space, we have areas for access. We asked to make sure that there would be trail access, but not parking access, and that there would be no stewardship fees. In the past, for properties that the Conservation Commission has considered accepting, the Conservation Commission has asked for a one-time payment for stewardship fees to reflect the cost that it will take to monitor that property, that conservation property. It was considered that this property has a good deal of value to the town, to the greater town residents, as we focus on the town center and expanding that area. And so the proposal is no stewardship fees in connection with acceptance of the open space. And certainly it's more frequent than not that we don't have stewardship fees, but it is something we've done in the past. And that is the conversation for acceptance of the open space. And so what the select board would be doing here would be conditionally accepting the open space, conditioned on the planning board's approval of the subdivision. And then after that, I think we will undertake the proposal to name the subdivision road. So I'll pause here and see if you have any questions for me and or the developer's representative.
We don't have parking commitment for that open area. Does that mean we'll have on-street parking, access roads?
It's an excellent question, and this is a topic that has come up in our trail interconnectivity stakeholder group. And the group, which has representatives from the Town Lands Committee, the Snowmobile Club, the Trails Committee, the Conservation Commission, it's a really well-represented group, wouldn't you say? Yes. So the collective wisdom is that parking areas are nice in some places and are appropriate in some places, but they feel out of place in a subdivision because you're inviting people from away to drive here and park and use the conservation space. And so what we have, what the group has decided is a better focus is focus on developing an interconnected trail network where people have many access points that they can use to get on these trails, and have selected parking areas so that people can park in a place, go to a place, or use the trail network, but not have parking areas in every neighborhood. And so for this property, a perfect example is the town center, right? We just invested in expanding the parking area next to the Kalis Country Store on the leased land from the state. And as we work to develop an interconnected trail network, what a great hub location for people to be able to go. And then the idea for folks that would start in the Oak Hill neighborhood or as part of this subdivision is they don't need to drive to that trail access. They can filter and walk to that trail access and use it to filter down to the town center otherwise. And so, yeah, that is a conversation that's happened in earnest with the Trail Interconnectivity Stakeholder Group.
How does the fact that Barrington has a you're not supposed to park on the roads requirement?
The idea is that people won't be parking on the road and not invited or asked or encouraged at all to park on the road.
Okay.
And that parking ordinance would remain in effect.
Okay. And there were a couple of concerns with lots of parking. They have to be snow removal at points. And the police also wanted parking areas where they could drive by and see what was going on in those parking lots.
That's a good point. Okay.
Those were some concerns. I had a question. I've seen Whitmer's Run, Whitmer's Court, I hear, and I think I saw Whitmer's Way on a document. So if someone can tell me what term we're
So I think there's two competing things, and I'll let Alex step to the microphone to answer part of it that I don't know. But there's two kind of names, I guess, right? There's a name for the development, which I think the developer has been using, Whitmer's Run. Is that the...
That's correct. And just for some background, Roger Whitner was a project manager for Chimberg for 25 years. He was a great employee of the company, and he passed unexpectedly earlier this year. So this project is the first one that we've developed since his passing, and so that's where Whitner's has come into play. We're naming it after him. And so Whitner's Run is the name of the subdivision. We had proposed Whitner's Way as the road name, but that was not a conflict with E911, so that's where Whitner's court came from. But what's really important to us is the integrity of Whitner, which is his last name.
Okay. Yeah, so why would you just not have Whitner's Run for the town road as well? Consistent.
I'm not sure that Run is an appropriate end name for a road.
So we talked about that in the office today, actually, because so the road suffixes have meaning, right? A boulevard is a thing, a way is a thing, a court is a thing.
Circle.
And so
I didn't know.
we have not, we have many roads in Barrington that do not have the appropriate suffixes because we haven't cared before. But we care now. And so we have been working to make sure that new road names that are created have the appropriate suffix. And so court is the most appropriate suffix for the development that's proposed. That said, run is strikingly similar. And so we haven't had an opportunity to ask E911 on Whitner's Run. The concern with Whitner's Way was Windsor Way. Windsor Way and Whitner's Way, too close. So, and it was okay because a separate suffix was more appropriate anyways. But personally, I don't vote. I think I'm technically a member of the road naming committee, although I'm an inactive member at that. My preference would be Whitner's Run if that's the name of the development. That seems appropriate. Can you pull up the name, the description for Whitner's Run? Or for Run, excuse me. And so I think it's appropriate. I would want to verify with E911. And so if we like Run better than court, then we can conditionally approve it, condition on E911's approval. So the definition of run is a short dead-end lane or road, which we've checked all those boxes so far, that follows a natural feature like a ridge or seam in the land, which this is kind of at the top of Oak Hill. So it seems like I was comfortable with it.
We got some pretty steep topography going in there. It's going to be expensive. I know that. So we're working right around that natural topography.
Actual little lollipop.
That's right.
I like run.
I don't know if we're going to about this ever, but it does occur to me that if you name the subdivision Whitmer Run, get a little confused to having a road Whitmer Run or other roads in Whitmer Run. To me. I don't like court though. I like Run better. I'll give you that.
Well, it sounds like the cream is floating to the top.
Okay.
Whitner's Run is great by us if it's okay by E911.
We could condition our motion on Whitner's Run, and if it was not accepted by E911 by default, Whitner's Court. Certainly make that motion. But we're still at the motion for accepting the Whitner's Run open space. So do we have a motion to?
I would love to make that motion.
Okay.
I would move that we conditionally accept Whitmer's Run open space comprised mostly of map 234 lot 57, which is about 25 acres pending planning board approval of the subject.
Excellent. And I have a second. Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Samaco, aye.
Happy LOI.
Trick eye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Scotia.
Very good.
We're
And-
delighted this has worked out.
I would like to make a motion to accept the name Whitner's Run with the condition that it be approved by E911, and should it not be, that we default to Whitner's Court.
I would second that.
Very good. Roll call vote, please.
Samaco, aye.
Happy LOI.
And trick eye.
Hardikoff, aye.
Scotia, aye.
Motion
Thank you
carries.
very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
And next up is our riveting select board reports and any concerns. And because we already reported out on the ZBA, and because our select person Samaco is new, I'm going to move to Dannon, please, for a report out.
Well, I'll report that the school board and the library board of trustees are meeting tomorrow afternoon.
Well, there we have that.
And there we are.
And select person Capiello.
So most of what we did at the last planning board, we've already discussed, the open space here and the Pasquatica Ridge and Estuaries Partnership Grant. So we're really excited that we will hopefully get that grant and begin to look at septic and stormwater regulations in town. And we have a meeting tomorrow night, and we'll be looking at an application I think only on the Class 6 portion of Flower Drive, although there's some other things that came out too.
Probably
Yeah.
just private. Flower Drive's all private. So
So
the
it's just
private
Class
portion.
6 of Forever.
Okay. And
So for Parks and Rec, the next event, or the earliest event, is the Egg Hunt, Saturday, April 12th at Ramsdale Lane. And we are going to be having a fishing derby coming up in early May. And there is also a new fitness program that people should go online and check out.
very good.
Can I just ask one more thing? Did all the select board people get the notice about the downtown trails on March 25th? So residents of the town are being asked to come for a training. So it's like a GPS app that you would use, and then you would walk some trails in town from the 13 acres out to the Winnie the Pooh trail area. And maybe as far over as this, and you give your impressions on this app. So I think it's a fun, easy thing, but we're trying to collect some data about
Yeah,
residents' interests of what to do in this area.
excellent.
Excellent plug. So Tuesday, March 25th, at the town hall is the training. It'll be about an hour. There will be a collective field day in early April, but the idea is once you're trained, they'll collect data through about the end of April, so you can go out either on the collective field day or out on your own. And Select Person Capiello was right. It goes, the subject area goes out to the Winnie the Pooh Trail, out to the middle school, in the east to the north up to about the town hall, and to the south down to about Commerce Way. And so anybody that you know that likes to be outside, whether it's for a short walk or an extensive exploration, encourage them to come on the 25th, participate. Thanks for plugging that.
I mean, RSVP, don't RSVP, just come 6 o'clock. We welcome anyone.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Can I make one more comment?
certainly.
Madam Chair? We didn't say it because I don't think we needed to say it, but maybe we do for everyone else. How impressive Jim's chairmanship has been the last year. Really significant progress at our town. Thank you
And
for
learned from Jim, like, I'm gonna be moving through these.
Right. We like that attitude.
Thank you. Next up is the next public comment. If you are online and wish to speak, please use your mouse. Mouse over your screen a little and click on raise your hand if you'd wish to speak. Anyone in house here that would like to speak? Okay. Given that I do not see anyone, I'm going to close public comment. Do we have a need for a non-public?
No.
Okay, then I would strongly and enthusiastically take a motion to adjourn.
That should be our newest member.
Motion. So moved.
Okay,
Second.
in a second, roll call, please.
Samaco, aye.
Capiello, I just want to say welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
And she got motions in on her first.
I know.
Did you see that?
Oh, she's good.
Aye.
Aye.
The coach.
Okay, see you all April 21st.